Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism. Now you can ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen.
Missy wants to know, hi, Dr. Doreen, what services are out there when your child has graduated from ABA, is getting bigger, 12 years old, and still displays aggressive behaviors? How do we keep him and everyone else safe? I love that question, Missy. Sending you a hug.
Yeah, so many ways a hug. And what a great question, Missy, because, you know, what you do, you can do two things. One is you can learn the different ways to manage the aggression. We could talk about it a little bit today. Or you can go back in and get ABA. I mean, let's be very clear. ABA, if when you need help with a challenging behavior, ABA is the way to go. So ABA is not necessarily just for very young children who need a comprehensive kind of teaching program. ABA is for when you have aggressive behavior. That is an exact reason why you would need ABA. Because the way to, and you will get insurance coverage for it no matter where you are, and you will get an intervention. It might not be comprehensive, it might not be hundreds of hours over a long period of time, but it will be an intervention that is very helpful, and you will get board certified people coming into your house and teaching you how to manage the aggression. Now, I will tell you some of the stuff about aggression and how to manage it, but it is difficult, especially when your child is 12. And this is also one of the things that I was reading this weekend that kind of brought tears to my eyes, was that a lot of parents deal with aggression and nobody knows. We don't talk about the aggression from our kids because we're kind of afraid to talk about it. We're afraid to jeopardize their futures or their placement, and we're afraid of people judging us and thinking this must be a bad parent who has an aggressive child. And it's none of those. It has absolutely nothing to do with that at all. All it is that your child has learned that aggression is a functional form of communicating whatever it is he wants. It's funny. I don't know how many of you guys saw the Oscars the other day with Will Smith getting very upset and going over and hitting Chris Rock in the face, and that's aggression, right? That's assault. And somewhere, Will would have learned that a certain level of frustration is sufficient to justify aggression. And, in my life, in my society, in my environment, it's not. There is no level of frustration that justifies aggression, right? There's just no level of frustration that allows that. Our kids learn that if they are very frustrated, if they aggress, people will try to figure out what they want and will give it to them. Now, what they want is usually either they're trying to communicate, I don't want to do this, leave me alone, or else I'm going to hit. Or they communicate, I want to go outside and no one's letting me go, I'm going to hit. Or I want an object, or I just want your attention. Or it could be a variety of things. Like one of the things I was reading this weekend had to do with a parent where the child would just get frustrated about things in life, like it's snowing outside, so I can't go outside and play with the dog, and then would aggress, right? And so for the child, it has become a form of communication. I'm going to say this, and this is super important. No challenging behavior, none. Aggression, tantrums, hitting, biting, kicking, spitting, running away. None of these are a symptom of autism. None of them. Nowhere have they ever been written as a symptom. When we diagnose, we do not look at those because they're not considered a symptom of autism. What they are is just a form of communication that the child has learned. Now, think about yourself. If you were trying to communicate with people and either you didn't understand their language or they didn't understand you, you'd get frustrated, right? And you would hit, pinch, pull, whatever it is, you'd aggress. And that's kind of a natural thing that happens. What we need to do is to teach our kids aggression doesn't work, language does work, or some sort of communication could also be non-vocal communication. And that's really the difference. And the way we do that in ABA is that when the child, first of all, with aggression, you need to block it because people can get hurt, right? So as soon as the individual is about to aggress, he needs to be stopped physically and then given the words to ask for what it is that he wants. And that's where it becomes super important to have a professional, because a BCBA will come in and identify what it is he's trying to communicate. And that's what we call the functional behavior assessment. So it's kind of like an aggressive act occurs. Sometimes it's really hard in the middle of that to figure out, what was he trying to go? Why did he do that? Why? What was the why? And the why is what we call in behavioral language the function. And there are ways that we figure out, oh, he did this because what he wanted was this, right? And you have to figure that out, because if you don't know the function, if you don't know the reason for a behavior, you're not going to be able to change it successfully. It's not about punishing a behavior. It's about replacing the behavior with a more adaptive form of communication that is easier, okay? Because aggressing is not easy. Like the person who's aggressing also wears themselves out. They like having a tantrum. It's very exhausting. So you need to figure out, okay, he's about to aggress for this reason. Before he aggresses, I'm going to have him just do an easy thing, like ask for it, or ask for a timeout, or say, I want this object, whatever the reason is, right? Give him an easier way of asking for that so that his frustration dissipates and he doesn't get aggressive. Now, once it, when you're dealing with a 12-year-old or older and there's aggression involved, I will always recommend that you get a BCBA back in. And you can, that's all you need is you have the diagnosis. You can certainly go in and ask your healthcare carrier for a short-term intervention where they will send in a BCBA to give you advice and guidance like I just did.
Amazing. Can I give a really short example of why you have to know what the function is? Because I
Of
think a lot
course.
of times we just don't get this. When my son was in third grade, there was a little boy in his classroom that at a certain time every day, this kid would get up, run for the door, and he would run out the door and across the field. Pretty
Yeah.
much the same time every day. And I'm gonna be impolite and say that there was a person on the staff who was not very, let's say she was ignorant to what we're talking about here. And
Yeah.
so, and she was in charge. And so what she would do, the teacher would call and say, he's run again. She would send somebody out to get him, bring her to her office, and then she would have him sit. She had these beautiful club chairs in her office. She would put the child in this very comfy chair in
That's
her
what you
office,
wanted. That's what you
right?
wanted.
And she would hand him a pencil, and the two of them would sit there, and the pencil would have an eraser on it, and they would sit there, and she would do it with him, and they would bounce pencils on their erasers for 20 minutes.
Oh,
and
wow.
and her theory was, we just have to make it so boring for him that he'll want to go back to the classroom. And every day I would come in to volunteer at a certain time, and I would walk by, and there the kid would happily be sitting in the club chair bouncing the pencil
Yeah.
with this person.
Yeah.
And I would say to the teacher, how's that working for everybody? Because it's
Yeah.
working really well for him, because she
Honestly.
didn't think about what it was that kid wanted.
Yep.
And what he wanted was a break. And
Mhm.
she would give it to him, which meant that he would continue doing it every day. If she
That's
had
right.
stopped and considered that maybe we teach him how to ask a break and give him a break where we're teaching the lesson while he's doing something physical, that kid could have stayed in education and better used the resources. But she didn't really know what it was he wanted, assumed, and then would do this thing and was entrenched in her, intervention, too entrenched to see that it wasn't working.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So,
actually, it's a really, really, really great point, Shannon. One of the ways that we figure out a function is to see what's not working, which is really interesting, right? When you see that, for instance, he aggresses and you give him an object, but he still aggresses, you would ask yourself, maybe he's aggressing for some other reason. But if you give him an object and he calms down, then oh, that's what he's trying to get, right? So aggression, so the things that don't work also give us a cue as to what it is the child is actually trying to communicate. And it's hard, it's not easy.
but I so appreciate you saying that you need to work with an expert. I want to say too, we've talked about this a little bit before on the show, that when you are a parent who's getting hit, it is very easy to get upside down. And I suffered from
Yeah.
something that I now talk about with parents and have heard from parents, and it's very scary because all the things that Dr. Granpeesheh was saying, we start to hide it because we don't want people to judge us. We don't want them to judge our child. We don't want our child to be seen as a monster and lose out on opportunities or play dates or things like that. But then what ends up happening, honestly, is, and I heard it in my own brain and I hear it in other parents' brain, we start to say, maybe I deserve it. And that is when you know that you are upside down. And I said it myself, and I've heard it from so many moms, especially that we justify it and say, because it's like your brain has to come up with a way that it's
Yeah.
not your child's
Yeah.
fault. And so you
Yeah.
say, I deserve it. I deserve to be hit because it must be something I'm doing wrong, or you fill in the blank with what you think it is that you're doing wrong. That is upside down thinking.
Or you even, like a mom that I was reading yesterday had written, maybe it's karma. And it's something I did in the past. This has the only relationship the hard part of autism has with you, I think, is that you are, a strong enough soul that you've been given this task, I guess.
You've been entrusted.
You've been entrusted with this journey, with this task, because you can handle it. It has nothing to do with karma, and it has nothing to do with anything you have done. I've had so many parents come to me and say, was it because when he or she was younger, I picked him up and shook him because I was angry? Like, there's so many things that we go back to, and it just isn't, and it's not helpful, and you just need to kind of move forward and just not blame yourself ever.
And if you're in that mode, if you're thinking that way at all, it's time to acknowledge it. I felt that way. I felt that way. I do not feel that way now. If you're feeling that way, it's time to get help. You need some support with that to help you to get to another place, a better place than the sun. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.